Hello fantastic creatures, I'm Fantasims. Welcome back to my channel, and as per usual I will be taking the Inside Maxis live stream that just aired and condensing it so we will go over every detail but just way faster for your convenience. This live stream is for the upcoming Cottage living pack coming out July 22nd, and surprisingly the live stream was only an hour. Usually the live streams are about an hour and a half, even for game packs and I think even the kit packs. But it seems like they purposefully didn't want to go into too much detail with the pack content because they kept saying that they are leaving that to the game changers, who will be posting a lot of gameplay and build by overview videos over the next couple weeks. But they did highlight some core features of the gameplay for this pack that the trailers did not reveal yet, so let's dig into what they talked about. They started off in Old New Hanford, which is one of the 3 neighbourhoods with the largest lots. The Cotswolds in England inspired this pack, which for those of you who are not British is a rural area in south central England famous for its medieval towns, thatch roof cottages, rolling hills and some of the most beautiful cities in England. The goal of this pack was, as they worded it, going back to the land feel to it in 3 levels represented by each neighbourhood. One is a medieval styled village, the second one is a rolling hill rural area for planting and raising animals, and the third is a more rustic neighbourhood with woods and a cottage fairy tale type feel. Game changers helped build every lot in this world, and those game changers are Devon Bumpkin, Claire Syben, I'm terrible with pronouncing some of these names so I really apologise, Claire Syben, or I don't know, however you pronounce her name, she's awesome, Thomas TV, I think that's what they said, and Hey Harry. Then they used a family called the Watson family, which I'm sure is one of the NPCs that will be included in this pack, to show us the chicken coops and the cow and llama sheds. So we can have 8 chickens per coop, and you can have as many coops as you want on a lot. Roosters and hens can be purchased, and if put together in a coop, they will make hatchable eggs. So I'm assuming without the rooster, you can have eggs for food, but if you have the rooster, you can have eggs that will hatch into baby chicks, or maybe you need a rooster for both of them. I don't know, they didn't specify. You can clean sheds and fulfill the needs of chickens to improve the quality of eggs and change the color of the eggs. Lots of interactions are included, so you can have all of these really unique gameplay moments with the chickens as well as the llamas and the cows. There's 2 brand new traits, an animal enthusiast trait and lactose intolerance trait. They didn't go into detail with the lactose intolerance. I'm sure there'll probably be some funny animations to go with that. But with the animal enthusiast trait, you can actually play an instrument to your chickens and do some other interactions to deepen your relationship with them. There are 2 special treats, Midnight Treat, which creates obsidian eggs and turns into an evil chicken, or the Golden Treat turns your chickens into a golden chicken, and the golden chicken glows gold as you can see in the footage. Golden chickens and evil chickens have special gameplay. They didn't go into it because they are leaving that to the game changers to show us, which personally, I don't know if I feel like that's them just being lazy or I don't know, maybe they're doing this new thing where they want to involve gameplay, game changers a lot more. I don't know. They showed us how the chickens hatch, which is really cute. Now, for the animal shed for the llamas and cows, you can only have 1 cow or 1 llama in a shed, but you can have as many sheds as you want or that you can fit on a lot. Cows can be milked and llamas can be sheared for wool. You can hand feed them, or you can actually refill the feed in the shed and they will automatically eat from that. Like chickens, you have to take good care of them because happier cows and llamas produce better milk and wool. And there are also a lot of special treats that you can give them as well. Llamas can also protect crops and keep foxes away, so they are handy to have around. You can drink milk straight from the bottle or use it as an ingredient in the recipes. Llama wool decreases cost of supplies for packs like Nifty Knitting, and as they talk about later on, you can actually use the llama wool in the county fair. They also briefly mentioned that you can talk to multiple animals at once. So they didn't show us in detail, but apparently like you can talk to maybe the cows, llamas and chickens all at once. I don't know, they just mentioned that. Animals have a lifespan and the Grim Reaper will hug them and take them away to the afterlife, but you can turn off the lifespan limit and keep them alive forever if you like. And I think there's also a treat that you can give them to keep them alive forever, but I'm not 100% sure. But there are lots of treats you can make from the fridge in your shed or coop. So apparently there's a refrigerator in the sheds in the coop, which is a little weird. But if you click on the shed or the coop, you can click on it says something to do with the fridge. You can click on that and make treats from that. Some of those treats are unlocked through errands. There's these special village errands that you can do that we'll talk about in a minute. And some ingredients can be found through the marketplace. So you can go into the village and purchase those ingredients. Special treat recipes are unlocked per sim, not per household. So each individual sim needs to know how to make these treats in order to give them to the animals. Treats can improve the harvest of wool and milk, and some can even bribe animals to be more friendly. And there's a ton more treats that they didn't go over, but you can see in the user interface when you you click on the animals that there are a lot of treat options. This pack also gives an overhaul to the notebook on the user interface, which is a base game update, but there's a new Cottage Living tab specific for this pack. It gives detailed instructions in the notebook and provides info on every detail of the pack and how to find things like ingredients and how to use them. This is a really important feature because there are so many different little interactions and ingredients and things to do with this pack that it can be hard to keep track of everything. So this notebook feature will allow you to have all the information you need in one place. There's also a new lot trait challenge system, and in the venue lot info panel in build mode, the UI has been updated. It still has lot traits, but now the traits that have gameplay function to them has been pushed to a challenge section, and you can actually have an unlimited amount of challenges assigned to your lot, and there are specific challenges for each pack. So even though we are restricted to 3 traits for a lot, you can have unlimited challenges for a lot. And some of them, when you combine them together, make the challenges a lot more difficult. So for example, for Cottage Living, there is the challenge of simple living, where cooking relies entirely on what crops and ingredients you gather from your lot or elsewhere like the grocery store, and combined with off the grid, it adds to the challenge and makes it even more difficult. So you can combine lot challenges from different packs, from base game or just from Cottage Living, to vary the kind of gameplay you want for your households. We can now cook together with kids, which is a base game update, but there are lots of new recipes that come specifically with this new pack. So for example, some ingredients now require a separate recipe. So if you now want to make something like mac and cheese, for example, with the lot challenge trait for Cottage Living, you will need to actually make the cheese separately before you can even make the mac and cheese. And to make the cheese, you will need to have the ingredients gathered from your animals or from the grocery store. Now, there are a lot of base game updates that are coming out before this pack. It is going to be a very large base game update, and one of those updates is that we can now cook as a family, so children and adults can cook together. However, it does require a certain amount of counter space in order for everyone to be able to cook. So for example, children mixing the ingredients to help adults cook. If there's not enough counter space to cook together with other family members, they will still bond with the family members, but you need more counter space to include the cooking animations and participation from multiple family members. But I think that's a brilliant touch, that even if you don't have the counter space, you can still interact with those family members and bond with them while you're cooking. Then they jumped over into cross-stitching. Now with cross-stitching, you can make small, medium and large cross-stitching circles, or whatever those things are called. There's 5 levels to this skill because it's just a small one, but there are lots of patterns that are unlocked by skills or errands or various places in the world. Now they didn't go into a ton of detail of what that means, but apparently there are certain patterns that can be unlocked as you interact with the townies in the village. Kids can also cross-stitch, and apparently there are patterns that you can find throughout the world. So in addition to, they made it sound like in addition to interacting with the NPC villagers, there's also a way to unlock patterns in the world. So I don't know if that is the same as like exploring for materials or special rocks, or you know how you scavenge for things out in the world. I don't know, they didn't go into a lot of detail with that, but you can also cross-stitch from reference like painting. So by taking a picture and then using it as a reference to cross-stitch, you can come up with an unlimited amount of decorations to put in your build. So the options are unlimited on what you can create with this cross-stitching skill. Canning is also tied to the cooking skill level and has separate levels, so you can actually purchase canned goods already from the grocery store if you don't want to make it yourself. But if you do make it yourself, there are going to be certain restrictions on your skill level and what kind of canning you can unlock. There are also new animations for some of the new canning recipes, but not all of them, so some of them just have a simple pouring animation. You can also add your ingredients to your picnic basket, put the basket in your inventory and take it with you wherever you go to lay out a picnic. They then took us over to Bramblewood. Now Bramblewood is in the woods, and it's the cottage type styled neighborhood with Cordelia Falls. So it's tying in a lot of lore with Princess Cordelia, which I'd be very interested to find out how she ties into all of this. And maybe it even hints at a future medieval pack. You know me, I live in hope. I live in constant hope that we're going to get a medieval pack. Anyway, there's also the other neighborhood is called Old New Henford, and it has large lots with the rolling hills. And then Finchwick Village has Finchwick Fair, Gnome's Arms Pub, and it is basically the town center. So in order to have your picnic, you just drag the picnic basket out of your inventory and set up a picnic, and then the sim will set everything out on the table and you can grab servings. So they showed us them having a picnic in the Bramblewood neighborhood in the park. Now onto the wild animals. Now the animals hide out in the evening, but during the day you can interact with them. The wild animals must be found out in the world first, and you can build up relationships with with them with lots of interactions and giving them gifts. And then once you have reached a relationship level, you can bring them home with you and put them on your lots. Their houses will show up in build mode and you can place them on your lot. But it can only be unlocked after you've befriended the wild animals. And they are so cute with lots of animations and interactions with them. Rabbits actually help you out with your gardening and nibble on the weeds and fertilize dirt patches to grow crops. So definitely not like real life, where real life bunnies will actually eat all of your crops. But these ones will actually only eat the weeds and they will fertilize your crops. Birds are also similar to rabbits, but you can't form a relationship with an individual bird, but you can befriend the entire flock, which is actually quite fun. You can gain their trust to befriend them, and then their home will be made accessible to put on your own lot. There are a ton of interactions with them, like a fairy tale moment where you can sing with them, and if they don't enjoy your singing, they will actually poop on you. They didn't show us them pooping on them, but they told us about it. They also help out with gardens in a different way, and they will take care of any insects in the garden or sing to your crops, which helps with the size and quality of oversized crops, which is a feature we'll be going over in a second. You can give them gifts, and there are a lot of options of the kinds of gifts you can give to build trust, but they actually have likes and dislikes with what gifts they prefer. This is like really cool. So the rabbits and the foxes and the birds, and maybe not the foxes, but definitely the rabbits and the birds actually have gift preferences, and each one is completely different. Each individual rabbit and bird have their own preferences that are different to each other, so some gifts will work better than others depending on what they prefer. So if you befriend one bunny, they might prefer one kind of gift, but then if you meet another wild bunny out in the world, they're actually going to prefer a different kind of gift, which is really cool. They also give gifts back to you once you've befriended them, and it will be placed in your inventory. Now, there's also a new townie called the Creature Keeper Sim, kind of like the hermit from Outdoor Retreat. They have their own little cottage, and if you visit them and you get to know them, they will actually craft animal clothing for you to custom dress your animals, and the clothing options are different each time you visit him. So keep checking back to him. I think he takes things like wool that you've harvested from your llama and will actually turn it into an outfit for your animals. So there is clothing for foxes, rabbits, llamas, and cows. There's also a new errand mechanism you can access through the Creature Keeper, as well as through villagers. Village errands also offer errands that you can do, and you can work on multiple errands at the same time, and they don't have time limits on them, but they set goals for things that you can accomplish. They didn't go into detail about what those errands are going to look like or the kinds of things you have to do, whether it's like gathering ingredients, cooking a recipe, going and doing something. They didn't specify. All they said was that there's going to be some village errands. But like some villagers might need help with something, and in doing those errands with them or for them, you can build relationships with the villagers. Even Mrs. Crumplebottom has a matchmaking quest that you can work on. They didn't go into detail with that either, just that there's a special errand that you can do for her. The cool thing is that this adds goals to the gameplay and helps develop the lore of the world and game, because apparently you can discover more and more about the lore through doing these errands. There's also a new aspiration called the Country Caretaker aspiration. It guides you through the new gameplay on how to become the ultimate caretaker of the animals and cottage gameplay of the pack. Now, some of you hate these aspirations because basically they're just like a tutorial, but for this pack it seems like there are so many little bits and pieces of the way that you can do things that it might actually be quite helpful to have this aspiration as an instructional tutorial on how to accomplish everything and do everything. Just like how the notepad feature we talked about earlier can bring everything together into one place just to make it easier for you to figure out where to gather things, what you can do with those things, and how to implement them in your gameplay. Now onto foxes. The Foxes Lot Challenge causes foxes to appear on your lots. You can befriend them and use llamas to protect chickens. Foxes also fight with rabbits and can actually eat them and kill them. The death of the bunny will cause your sim to be sad. Foxes can also steal eggs, and sims can actually stop foxes from killing your bunnies. They didn't show us how, they just told us. And again, llamas can also protect. Now, foxes will wander around the world, but they won't appear on your lot unless you have the wild fox lot trait. So you can still befriend them if you don't have the lot trait out in the world, you just won't be able to do it on your lot. You can befriend the foxes just like you can with the bunnies and birds and give gifts, and it will stop them actually from attacking your chickens and bunnies, or you can disable them from doing that from the menu if you're not fond of them killing all your bunnies, especially after all that work you've put into befriending the bunnies in the first place. There's also an update to calendars where now calendars will be available for base game. The calendars have been moved to base game, so it's a new update, and seasons will still have exclusive holidays, but for cottage living there are also events that are more easily managed with this calendar feature, such as the fair competition event. Another base game update is that children can also garden by weeding and watering plants, and this builds their mental skill. And once they've reached a certain level, such as mental skill level 3, they can actually plant a plant. plant, whereas without that skill level, they can only weed and water them. Children are also limited in that they cannot use bug killer because the bug killer is toxic and is unsafe for children. There's also a ton of new mushrooms and berries for pies and new recipes that go along with this pack, and there's a nightly mushroom that will glow bright blue at night. Now, when you're prepping for the giant oversized crop competition, you'll actually need to grow oversized crops separately from regular crops. Now, oversized crops actually have to be contained within these new gardening patches. So there's a flat and a mounded version of the patch. It's like a square patch with the little dirt rows that you can see in the footage. And you can click on the patch and purchase oversized seeds. And instead of putting the separate plant like normal into the ground, you actually spread the seeds over this patch, and several mounds of soil will appear, 9 of them to be exact. Then, once sprouted, you can encourage and fertilize crops. There are new types of fertilizer that impact the quality and speed of plant growth, and depending on how well you took care of it, you will get 3 different options. You will either get 4 normal-sized plants, 2 larger ones, and both of these are better for canning, or you can get a massive crop that is perfect for the fair competition. So there is separate gameplay and uses for each type of crop size, which means that no matter what crop size you have, they're all going to be useful for something. Now, the Finchwick Fair is located by the Gnome's Arms pub in the village centre. There are several types of fairs that are on a schedule that happen once a week. There are lots of different competitions. They didn't go into all of them, but they did mention things such as giant crops, pies, wool, animals, and more. The calendar will actually tell you what the competition will be for each event because it changes each week. You can also tell by the community boards. If you click on these community boards, a fair flyer will pop up to show you what the upcoming fair will be judging. That way you can prepare, whether it's wool, whether it's crops, whether it's pies, whether it's animals, you can prepare in advance for the upcoming fair. Villagers also have special titles that add to the lore and gameplay for the world, and they are each unique. So we'll go over what they are in a second, but they first started off with the mayor. And villagers such as the mayor with these special titles will have errands that your Sims can do. So you click on them and interact with them to figure out what errands you can do, and again, you can do multiple errands at once with multiple different villagers. Agnes and Agatha Crumplebottom run the gardening store together, and while Agnes hates romance between Sims just like in Sims 3 and will hit you with her purse, Agatha, her cousin, is more outgoing and has extra friendliness with gnomes. They didn't explain what that means, they just said it. If you want to know who all the villagers are that help run Finchwick, you can click on the community board to learn more about them. There's also a grocery deliverer who will bring groceries to your door, and there's a pub owner, and 3 Crumplebottoms run the grocery store. They didn't go into detail about the third one, but she looks a lot younger, so maybe she's the daughter of Agnes or something like that. They also mentioned there's a special gift and tradition and a special social interaction that is specific to the pack with the NPCs, such as the Henford Heart to Heart, where if you keep doing it with them, you will learn more about the lore of Henford. You can also bribe judges to give you a better score with the competition, but it might actually backfire, which it did in the live stream. Agnes was not impressed. Now, there are 2 new types of shops. They kept calling it shops, but they're actually market stalls, just like we've had with other packs. But there are 2 of them, and the interactions are slightly different. So there's a garden shop and a town grocery shop. You can buy supplies, seeds, groceries from them, but you can also sell at both of the stalls, and you get a 10% financial boost for selling there. So I'm assuming in the garden stall, you can sell some of your gardening seeds or whatever, maybe some of the crops, and in the grocery shop, maybe you can sell your recipes, your pies that you create. Now, the village shops, which are basically the set dressing buildings around the village, you can actually window shop, and you get a buff from doing that. So if you look closely in some of the windows, there's like a bakery that has some baked goods, and they didn't show us any casts because they are leaving that for the game changers to show off in their videos, so you'll have to check those out to find out what cast items we will be getting with this pack. They ended by talking about the new pond water tool, which is also a base game update. The build mode user interface has changed to incorporate ponds. So basically, you can combine the terrain tool by first carving a hole in the ground, and then you can fill it with water and change the depth of the water. You can fill it up more or remove water, and each pond on the lot can have a different level of water. You can customize with 4 new water styles with some leaf and mossy ones, and there are surface decorations like a mossy log, lily pads, reeds, and visual effects objects, which are basically in build mode. They look like tiles of animated animals and insects, and even it looked like some glistening animations, although that might have just been like a swarm of bugs or something, and they go on top of the water. Then when you go in live mode, the tiles of the VFX will go away and it will turn into creatures, and you can actually click on those objects and those creatures in live mode and add even more animations. So for example, you can click on the log and add a turtle to it, or you can click on the lily pad and say that you want to add frogs to it. So there's like animations on top of animations. You can customize it however you want. There's gameplay with ponds as well, like splashing in the water, looking for frogs, and if you add a fishing sign, you can fish in the pond, and you can choose what kinds of fish to stock the pond with. But in order to stock the pond with fish, you have to have first discovered the fish out elsewhere in the worlds. Also, if you have seasons installed, the ponds will freeze over in the winter, but this will also disable the animals, and the fish will go away, obviously, because they wouldn't be able to survive in the ice. And then that was it. They're leaving most of the details of the pack to game changers rather than showing it off in the live stream. Oh, but they did end with quickly going over the bonus content that we will be getting. So if you purchase this expansion pack before September 2nd, there is a special bike and gnome and tree with a gnome door, which is just decorative. All of us kind of thought it was like a fairy tree or a fairy door, but it's actually a gnome tree with a gnome door, and it's just decoration. But those 3 objects will not be accessible if you purchase the pack after September 2nd. And that's it. That's everything they went over. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think about the details they discussed with us? Are there things that you are excited about, not excited about? And until the next video, guys, you know I freaking love you.